Wednesday night hump. We are midway through another week. We have made it through another week halfway, and we're going to celebrate that by spending some time talking about guitars. And before I get started here, of course, I always want to thank everybody for taking the time to tune in. Whether you watch this live or in the rerun, your time spent is greatly appreciated doing so. And I want to start off always by thanking you for doing that, for growing this channel, making it what it is. Scott, welcome. How are you? Hope you're here to answer your question. Yeah, there'll be some demos of those. You asked your question in the chat of my regular content that I released today. I put out a video of an unboxing today. Yeah, you got it, man. Always. Scott said, "Good, thanks." For those of you just listening in, yeah, we're gonna do that. I haven't even really. I've been so busy. I haven't really even got a chance to tune them up or anything else, much less. So I'm hoping to get an opportunity to do that here in a moment. Let me make some adjustments here. Okay, everything's looking good. Looking good for this evening. Welcome to Ben Allmark. How you doing? I'm doing fine, sir. Anthony, hey, how you doing, sir? Welcome, welcome. Good to see you here, Mr. Watson. Welcome. Greetings. Everybody's starting to show up here. Good, good, good. I shall ramble on a little bit more while we wait for more people to show up. And I want to thank you guys always for supporting this channel and tuning in. You won't be disappointed tonight. Tonight you are going to get a treat that I doubt that is rarely seen on YouTube guitar channels. So stay tuned for that. Again, while we wait for more people to show up in the chat, I'm going to ramble on about things that are on my mind. The guitar market is getting tough out there, guys. It's getting ugly. For the big and medium-sized retail shops, they are feeling the pinch. Money flow is not as great as it is, and margins are getting tight. They're still doing sales, but there is a significant slowdown. And if you look in the secondhand market, you're seeing a lot of price reductions, especially on vintage stuff. Especially, and though it's right up my alley, so it's why I speak of it, of overpriced vintage made in Japan gear. Yes, there is an extreme danger. I talked about that, how I may actually be part of that process over here, at least, of this gear going up in price in the market. Not me. I sell wholesale. My margins are enough to keep things going. Believe me, I'm not buying Maseratis off of it. But when they get to some of my bigger clients, they put them in their shops and they mark them up, and those are coming down, and I have to adjust myself. And although in my case this was the snowball from hell that I think I've been talking about, I know our good channel friend Three Chord Dave has been talking about this as long as I have, maybe longer, as I've said, about that snowball hell that was coming as a result of all these factors over the last 5 years that have led to this environment. On top of that, just the regular disaster that's going out there in the regular economy. So it's just a real, real, real bad scene out there. And I'm okay because I always built I built a business model and wrote a business plan that got approved for a business that was lean, that could operate very leanly. I have friends who said, "Oh, well, why don't you, go online and sell more, and do this, that, and the other." But I find that for me, I'm happy with keeping it lean, and in these lean times, that's proving to be really a smart business move on my part. I'm not happy about it, but a lean business in this environment can pivot a lot better. So that is one thing that has been on my mind this week, as far as that's concerned. Scott says it's always good to understand where you stand in the food chain. Yes, sir. Indeed, you were absolutely right. Somebody told me a long time ago. They said my best advice to you, Mike. I was young too. Is sell very expensive things to very rich people, and you always have a client in good times and bad times. They may cut back, but they'll still buy. If you're not selling to the end user, there has to be room for the next guy to get his slice too. Yeah, hey, I got to know my place in the pie. And it's taken the last 5 years of doing business here, because I had started business here when I came here. It's part of my, fortunately, if you're an American and you start a business here, you can stay. So it has to be successful. That's the other reason I planned it the way that I did as well. But it is certainly knowing where you stand and your margins, and so therefore you start looking for bargains, which on my end. So it's really up to that first guy, me, the wholesaler, to try, which is buying from another wholesaler or a private party. And we're going to talk about that tonight. To find the best deal possible. And fortunately, I'm pretty good at that. Again, it's all about, if you watch my video today that I did, the unboxing of the guitars I'm going to share with you guys live tonight. Yeah, we're going to talk about them live tonight. We're going to look at some of this stuff. We're going to go through it in a lot more detail than I could do in a 15-minute regular content video on my channel tonight. So we've got so much time and so little to talk about. Now, scratch that, reverse it. Sorry. And I want to get into it with you guys. But that was, it all jumps off from really knowing, as Scott just pointed out, your place in the food chain. Ben Allmark. Buying in bulk, like buying collections, wouldn't be a bad way to go if you can find them. And the collections are like anything else. There's several analogies I could draw upon, but the basic gist of them all is that usually in a collection there's one or two that are okay, and the rest of them are marginal at best, and so you run that risk. No, that is a good way to go in some cases. Trogley buys collections, and but he's somehow or another he's a bulk mover. Something going on there. But anyway, for me in this situation, keeping it to a small buys every month seems to be working out. And with the pivot I plan on doing my business model now, in light of this situation, it makes even more sense. As a matter of fact, I might be able to increase the amount that I bring in if my plan works out. But even in these lean times, you have to learn how to pivot. So that's the first discussion I want to have tonight. That actually pivots, see how I did that, into talking about the guitars that I bought this month. Now, we're going to go through these guitars. And I want to talk about them in a little bit more detail and correct some mistakes that I made in the video that I put out today in the unboxing video. When I'm doing that, guys, I'm riffing off the top of my head. There is no script for that. For these live streams, I do a bullet point script, which let me make sure I've got that up, about the things, to make sure I touch upon the points that I want to talk about. But when I'm doing an unboxing video like that, I'm completely riffing off the information that may or may not be correct off the top of my head. So I want to correct a few few mistakes also I made, just two, if I can remember them. It's been a long day, guys. I am exhausted as usual, but tomorrow is a holiday here. It's Ascension Day. So, I can riff on tonight until I drift off tonight. So let's get into the first one that I want to talk about here. Let me get to my notes. Hold on. Let me see. Um, I have lost my notes, guys. Just hold on here. Sorry. Oh, okay. Here we go. And here we go. All right. So the first guitar I want to talk about is this one. So this is a 1975 Greco spacey sounds. It's the same, in 76 they started putting spacey sounds there after the Greco label, but it's essentially the same guitar. So in 75, this is, SE600. Still got its parts on it, although I do believe this plate has been changed. The original plate said made in Japan and Matsumoku on it. So at some point that's been changed, but that's a minor thing. It still had its original back plate. It's still in its original case, which is right here over one of my shoulders here. It still had its original whammy bar as well. And I'll tell you something about these 70s Grecos. First thing I'll start out by saying is that finding a whammy bar that correctly fits in the original tremolo is pretty difficult. It's actually extremely difficult. You're not going to get it off Temu. It's just not going to happen. But, let's get into that. Sorry, I'm just making sure my lighting is good here so you guys can see this as well as possible. I think that's good. So Scott says, can you explain Greco's nomenclature for their numbering system? What to do the SC, SC for? Yeah, sure. That is a fantastic question. So this is an SE600. Now, I've said before that with the number system, that denotes its yen value. Its yen value. So if you have an SE600 in 1975, this guitar was worth Rokuma yen, 60,000 yen, basically the equivalent today of, what is that? 60,000 yen is about 350 some odd euros or something like that. But in any case, back then it was worth a lot more because the yen was stronger. So this was not an inexpensive guitar. Even back then, the salary of the typical salary man during that time period, Japanese business guy or typical guy, was really about Niju yen a month or less, And so something like this would represent a big investment for some and several months worth of saving for others. So that'll give you some idea in terms of the prices. 900 Nanama yen, 800 we've got here. We've got 800 and 900 here next to me. So 800, 8 mon, 9 mon. The SE, I have no idea what SE stands for. I have no idea what what it stands for. I really don't. I'm going to say maybe the S has got to be Strat. It's the one. That's such a good question because it's the one thing that I can't answer, and I don't know why. And then of course they changed over to giving them names. Like this is the SE675, but then it became the Springy sound in 76. So what the SE is springy, I don't know. I really don't. Um, so there's that. But I'm sure on the internet out there but I just want to answer that it's my answer to you is I don't know. The pricing I understand because that's the part that kind of matters to me, I guess, so that's what I focused on. But the SE and the TE, well, TE Telecaster, is obviously Strat, EG. I could assume that stands for electric guitar. Those are just my guesses. but what it really means is anybody's guess. Because again, they changed over to names eventually. Um, yeah, the neck on this. Thank you for pointing that out, Michael. Look at that. Look at that neck. Now, this guitar has been played. That's real, real, relicking. That's not, done at the relic shop. This was, when you have enough of these come through, you start to be able to read the guitar. You know which ones were collectors' guitars, basically case queens. You know which ones were abused. We certainly had a few of those through. We know which ones were played but well loved, and then we know the ones that were really played and really well loved. And this one falls into that category. I don't know because I got this from Book Off for very cheaply. So I'm going to talk about that in a minute too. Here, I want to ask you guys a question. But I'm going to guess because of the wear on this fretboard, and also this guitar has had a refret. It's had a refret done on it, and the refret is pretty decent. I'm going to have to go through and do a level polish, but it's had a refret. That means that this was somebody's player. This was a guitar that somebody, you know, rode hard and brought in wet, is the old saying in the Midwest. And I kind of gotta respect that. It's they didn't abuse it. They took relatively good care of it. Everything still works on this. Some of the knobs were broken. I have vintage, um, you know, knobs for these galore, so I just stuck two on, and so that's fine. I think that the person who played this either became ill or passed away. This is a 75, guys, and it came in its original case. The case that I have for it is a 70s case. So I think the original player has probably passed away. This sat neglected somewhere, got beat up a little bit, and somebody in the family took it to Book Off and sold it. So because this guitar has the vibe of a well played guitar, of a well played guitar. So there is that. No neck breaks, no cracks. I think they replaced the tuners as well because actually these are not the tuners you would find on this model, but these are actually nicer tuners. They're actually better. So I'm not going to complain. Yeah, this was played. If somebody took the time to replace those Greco tuners, which aren't that great, let me tell you, that means that this was really somebody's player. And there are no dings, no nicks on it, as you can see. You know, nothing. There's this discoloration, but that's just over. That's just time. There is a little bit of a dimple right here in the neck, but I've shown you guys before how you can use a couple of different things, but I'm going to repair that. I'm going to smooth that out. I've done quite a few of those to make it so that you never knew that was there. There'd be a little discoloration there where the mark is at, where you can see right now, but when you run your finger over it, it'll be smooth. We'll fill that in. And I bought this to restore it and to sell it. Again, so you guys can see that that's a pancake body. One, two pieces, pancake body. And if you look at the neck very closely, again, this lighting is not the greatest, but you can see that it is also a three-piece neck. Now, that's how they were making these guitars back then at the Fender factory. And the Japanese, all they did was just copy that. The pickups are XL pickups. We know Maxon XL pickups. We've actually played these. We've done demonstrations of these. So original pickups still there. That's always a bonus because I like the sound of the Maxon Strat pickups, the XLs. To me, they're the Strat sound. If you want, they were really looking. They took a 57. Is it a 57 Strat or 56, something like that. They took a 57, 56 Strat and they just deconstructed the pickups, and that's what they were basing most of their pickups off of. These probably wound a little bit. These XLs are maybe a little bit hotter because they were trying to emulate 70s, thus the headstock 70s guitars. But other than that, they still have that classic twang to them that I like. So, as you guys know, I by the way, I didn't hit on any of my notes. Did I miss anything on that? So these are high spec Strat copies. These are Maxon XL pickups, as I said before. The Stratlinder's era of 77 was the 450, the 600, and the 800, and also the 7. That'll come a little bit later. I'm sorry, the 500 would come a little bit later, but mostly towards 76. It's got the classic large headstock on it. Very Fender-like tone, as I said, with solid Japanese craftsmanship. If Fender was making their their guitars in the 70s in Japan, so there's that. Grain for days, yeah. Just look at that. You know, that's just that's just and that's because of that discoloration is actually because of the rain. It's at first I thought maybe there was a sticker there or something like that, but no, that's just over time. And look at that. Look at that. It's beautiful. I thought because they sold it to me so cheaply, I paid for this the same price that I paid for the Aria Pro 2 Telecaster. If you can dig that. I thought, great, I will, great deal. I can fix it up and get a good wholesale price on it, even on this end after I do some work in it. But after I got the guitar and looked at it, I haven't taken the plate off yet. I will. I'll take the plate off and take a look at the electronics, and I haven't even plugged it in yet. By the way, I know it works because Bookoff doesn't buy guitars that don't produce sound. But certainly, which is one of the reasons why I buy from them. But because they check it out before, it just makes things a lot easier. But I looked. I went to Fern today to pick up the Aura Pro 2, by the way. I had him do the setup checkup on it. And we took a picture of the neck area. Took the neck off. And there's no markings in there. On Made in Korea Aura Pro 2s of that area, there would be markings in the neck pocket. There are none on the neck or the neck pocket, thus really verifying that it is a made in Japan Aria Pro 2. And as you know, and I talked to Fern, we discussed it. We both did come to the conclusion it's about the same quality as you would find in a modern Squire classic vibe, just put together just a little bit better in some regards. Some regards a little about the same. And I mentioned, I said, oh, by the way, I got this Greco, and I showed him a picture of the size. I said, this looks like a refret to me. What do you think? And he looked at it and he said, yeah, that's a refret on that. And I said, we got to talking, and the conclusion came that for me, because he knows me, he knows my music, he knows me, he knows what I like, what I don't like. And he said, you really should strongly consider selling the Aria Pro 2 and keeping the Greco over here, 600. And we backed and forth about, the pros and cons of that. And so I'm debating that. Actually. I'm seriously thinking about doing that. As a matter of fact, I made an offer to a good client of mine. and see what he has to say about it. But either way, I'm considering it. At least I put a feeler out there for it, just to see if I'm pricing it right. Benny Larson, welcome, sir. How you doing? You are never have to apologize for being late, sir. It is always good to have you there with us. Mr. Rogers as well. Good to see you. Good to see everybody. So there is that. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, look at this, guys. So what do we have here? We have here a 1978 custom. So let's see. Where should I start? Where am I? I should refer to your notes. That's where you should start. That's why you made notes. So we've had that Black Beauty custom before. Remember that one that I fell in love with? That was the guitar that I really wanted to keep, but I just couldn't swing it at that time, and I had to sell it. And it really made me fall in love with these customs. Now, the first mistake that I'd like to correct in that video today is I said these are shot in poly. These are actually shot in nitro. And the reason is, if you take a look here, you can see there's some checking there. You see down here, which is okay. I'll be frank with you, because the checking is not to the point where there's any peeling in it, but you can see that the nitro in this started check. On the back, it's fine. No checking on the back. It's just here on the front part, which coming from Japan and being from 1978, I can say almost 47 years old. I can say honestly that if that's the least of the problems of this guitar, which it is, then you're doing all right. Got the volute that you would find on a 70s Les Paul custom. Same headstock. A little bit of fading there in that mother of pearl Greco insignia there, the little symbol there in the middle, but that's okay. No problem, no net breaks or anything like that, no breaks and nothing like that. Again, three-piece neck, pancake body. Boy, you can clearly see that pancake body there in this light. Three pancakes. So when you hear about pancake bodies from the 70s, understand that was a holdover from the 60s. We've talked about this Greco over here having a pancake body is exactly how Fender was building a lot of their instruments. One they were building for Jimi Hendrix, by the way. It was a pancake body, just same as this. It was a common thing, and you'll hear them say, "Oh, the '70s Gibsons were crap. They weren't great because they had the pancake bodies." What you want to do is buy, the vintage ones from the '50s and '60s. Those are the good ones. Well, that kind of design was, first of all, that's a sales pitch in order to try to sell you a vintage guitar, as opposed to a '70s. I guess they're all vintage now, relative, but you understand my meaning. The second thing is that that's not true. Because now, in 2025, looking at this 78, we realize that this was very well, when it's well done. Now, I've seen Gibson customs where you're starting to see separation here. As a matter of fact, if you look on my channel, we had a Gibson custom on when we went down to Utrecht to the shop and took a look at that one. You could see the separation that was occurring here. These Japanese models, I've never seen a Japanese model that had that issue. So they were made better. Identifying these, there are two custom models, the 600 and the 800. How do you tell the difference between the two of them? Well, it's really simple. The 800 will have mother of pearl inlays. This has, the pearlite inlays. So that's how you tell the difference. The other difference with the 800 is the pickups, I believe. Again, we have a set of Max 1 pickups in here. what do we got here? So um, it has it has U1000 on export models. In the domestic models like this one, it would have the PUO pickups, which are really nice, really super nice. You want to, those are far better than the U1000s. So we'll listen to that. I think that's it. Yeah, that was the same in the other custom that I had as well. It had those PU zeros in it, and I love the way it sounded. I think you guys did too when you heard it. What else can I say about this? Modest hardware on this. It's still Goto stuff on here. Still Goto hardware. Amazingly enough, still has the tuners. These are the tuners. These Greco tuners that it should like look like that on the back on that SE600. These are true Greco tuners from that period. That's how I know the tuners have been switched on that. However, I prefer those tuners over these. These are a little slippery with time. Everything works on this fine. Again, I haven't plugged it in, but it was bought from a reputable shop. They always check these out before they send them out. Um, this is, take a look at the back. You can see the back. Just beautiful burst. Not a clown burst. Not too clowny. I love that fade they do on the neck to like to simulate it's been played down. Like it was an all red neck, but you wore it down by playing. Some of the original fake relicking. But anyway, it looks cool on this guitar. Um, yeah, so a little bit more of it. Again, so we've seen two pancake body guitars from the 70s so far. And again, I've pointed out before, and I want you to see that for your, if you've never seen it before, I want you to see that with your own eyes to know that that is a standard construction process in guitar making. Don't let anybody make you believe that there's something wrong with a pancake body. When it's done right, it's a beautiful thing. Where are we at? Let's catch up. Scott says that finish is better than 70s Gibson. Yeah, that's the other thing is the Japanese were doing, that's nitro, by the way. The reason we know is we've got that checking, that classic nitro checking that you can get, and that happens because of temperature changes. At some point in its life, this guitar was in a hot place and then it got to a cold place and it decided to check. But it is sprayed in nitro. And yes, these are better finishes than you're getting in, you were getting with Gibson at that time. So I thought it was an 800. It's actually a 600 on this one because it doesn't have the mother and pearl inlays, but still, the Black Beauty I had was a 600 as well. I'll eventually get my hands on an 800 one of these days so I can really tell the difference. I suspect it's probably the construction of the neck. It's probably a one-piece neck, or at least a two-piece neck on those, not a three-piece like this one. That's generally also why the price differences occur with these guitars. The difference between a 600 to an 800 to a 900 are the small little changes they do in the construction. That's why the super reels, when they came out in the early 1980s, were considered the pinnacle of these guitars, these Greco guitars, because those were built to true specs, one-piece necks, you know, mahogany back, maple top, solid maple top. And so there's that. Let's catch up here. What we were saying, can't stop playing music. Nice looking guitar. Thank you, sir. Good night, Big Papa. Yeah, but Fender were doing it because kitchen tables aren't as thick as a telly. That's right, man. That's a good one, Scott. Fender got defeated, though in Cyber, it was inevitable. Who starred in that movie? That's my question, too. Any corrosion on that Les Paul? No, none at all. light rust, but to the point. The only slight rust I see is here on the big screws here, but that's, I can take that off with a steel brush, light brushing, and a little bit of baking soda and lemon juice, and that'll be gone. I did it with that Greco base, and it looked shiny. But I don't want to do that too much because, again, you know, one of the things with restoration is learning when to stop restoring. Because sometimes, or over restoring, where you could keep a balance between the the you know the natural patina that it's got over time, and also clean it up a little bit. Like, this is a good example. I wouldn't do nothing to this neck. I love this neck worn like this. Uh, so I wouldn't do anything to try to finish that. What I would do, what I did do, is I cleaned up this plate. This plate didn't is still, needs a buffing and polishing out, but you can see where the guy was scraping the picks in this plate. That's how much it was played. A little buffing, so things like that. Uh, that's the kind of restoration that I will do on this. But again, but restoration is really about a balance. That is very true. So no corrosion. Just wondering if the vertical checking would be humidity. It's absolutely humidity damage. Absolutely. Um, that that first one of the Les Pauls, one of the first Les Pauls that I bought, that gold top, you go back in my channel and check, from Singapore, had the same checking for the same reason. Uh, there in that part of the world, the humidity changes can be and temperature changes can really do that. It doesn't bother me. As a matter of fact, I think it adds to the. I don't know how well that's showing up. You guys can see that, catch that. That's how it's there. It is. You can see it a little bit there. Yeah, you can see it a little bit. Yeah, there you go. You can see it. Um, that doesn't bother me because, again, it kind of adds to the cool factor of this guitar. You don't want to do that on a new guitar. Oh, you'd be real sad. But a vintage one like this, it adds a certain je ne sais quoi, shall we say. Now, that leads me to the next one. And before I get to the next one, I'm going to have a drink. And I'm going to say thank you to you guys for sticking in here and looking at these guitars. And Scott, thank you so much for keeping on top of the trolls. Now, I missed you last time, man. We had ourselves quite a parade. But honestly speaking, this next one that I want to show you guys is the finest Greco Les Paul that I've ever had. Yeah, sorry, man. If you're going to do this, we got to do it in English. There's plenty of translation devices. Trust me, I use them all the time. I bet you, Scott, if you translate that, it would say, "Hey, Obama." So it's no different than any of the other ones we've gotten tonight. Um, or, or some variation of that. Somehow Obama will come into play. This next one is the one that it's the finest Greco Les Paul I've ever honestly had in my hands. It's probably one of the finest Les Pauls I've ever had in my hands. I kid you not. I'm not, guys, I don't, I'm not this is a game changer type guy. It's just, you're never going to get that out of me because it's all bullshit. But I've had enough, and I think you've seen me have enough, and I think I've played enough, had enough to respect my opinion when I say that this is better than the Les Paul Standard 60s that I had when I first moved here to from Singapore. The one that I sold after I got that Epiphone 59. And if I had this guitar at that time, I would have sold both of those and said I'm good because this outshines both of those by far, by far. And so let's take a look at it. This guy's. And by the way, you know I like them clean. These other two, they don't have any major issues with them, but they're not super clean. This one is museum quality clean. I want you to understand this is from 1977. This is from you should think about that. This guitar is from 1977. And take a look at the back there. Look at the tuners, original tuners again. Those tuners that you should be looking for. They're very distinctive, the Greco tuners. Not a scratch. The hardware looks brand new. This guitar is one that I would classify as a case queen. Yeah, looking good. Looking good for a 48-year-old guitar. The SE900. This is a Les Paul. I don't know what else I've been playing for, last, 50, not 50, let's say 40 years, but this is a Les Paul. In every way. It just feels, these can be boats, but this one I put around 9 pounds, which is above my range, but because, by about 0.5, but you know what? That's okay because it's really good. How much do I want for this one? $8.95 plus VAT, plus the tax. It's probably going to come out to $8.95 plus 21% is probably what I'm going to do this one for. That leaves again. I'm a wholesaler, so I leave room for people. But that's the wholesale price. Now, this is a second mistake that I made in that video that I'd like to correct about the pickups. I did point out in that video that the 77 EG900, like these, were basically upgrades of the EG700 that came out earlier that year. You can find it in the catalog. You can't find these because it came out later in the year. Just like the SE600 Jeff Beck model, which also has white pickups, but the pickups in that are SH1s. So Seymour Duncan SH1s. The pickups in this, the pickups in the 700 would be U3000s. The pickups in this guitar, depending upon whether it was earlier in its run, probably they started these around June, I'm guessing, of 77, maybe in and around there. They first came out with a choice of two pickups, either DiMarzio's PHFs, so the DiMarzio PHFs from that time, or the PU2 pickups, the successor to the U3000s or U4000s. Very high. As a matter of fact, the PU pickups are just under, in terms of desirability and sound, to the Dry Z's, which are considered to be the ultimate in Maxon pickups. These are the pickups that fall in category and price right under the Dry Z's. The word out there, and holding it here in my hand and looking at it and observe and knowing rosewood fretboards. One of the other upgrades, not a pancake body on this, not a multi-piece neck, um, and also the rosewood on this is 80% chance of being, from my research, of being Brazilian rosewood. I've never had a guitar with Brazilian rosewood. I know I've played and touched, and they have a certain sweet smell to them if you play them and get them warmed up. And the feel of this, with other examples of this that have gotten the, with this one has been kept so well, uh, this hasn't even really darkened as much as some other examples I've seen on Reverb of this model. Some people thought in some of the chats that it was actually an ebony fretboard, but no. What it is just in those cases just a very aged Brazilian rosewood, and this is been so well kept that you can still see the quality of it. So it's siding there. So those are the upgrades. That's what that again. So you go from that EG700 model, also mother of pearl inlay. So this is a pearloid like you saw on the 600 custom here behind. This is true mother of pearl, Brazilian rosewood, top of second to top of the line pickups, and you can understand why there's that Neiman yen price difference between the 700 that came out early in the year and the later on these 900s, those upgrades that they did to it to justify that price increase. Because at that time, by the way, look at the back again, not a scratch, not a, I mean, just clean. The Godo pieces still have their original patina to it. This is the cleanest one this is just clean. And you guys are thinking I'm, kidding you. You can look at that and see it says 1977. This is a 77 and clean as they come. But it's those upgrades that made those price difference. Now, for sure, they were putting Brazilian rosewood on the 1200s. Uh, is it 1200s? Yeah, 1200s models. But also on some of the 900, some of the 900 models also as well. So the 900 and 1200s of this range got Brazilian rosewood, not continuously, but they had a supply of it at that time, and they were using it for their higher end models. And that's across the board, not just on Strats. I'm not sorry, not just on Les Pauls, but also Strats. Certainly on their 335 copies, things like that, like the SA2, things like that. Or I'm sorry, the SA 1200, things like that. Maddie's. I see everybody saying hello to Maddie. I guess he came. Oh, there he is. Hey, Maddie, how you doing, sir? Welcome to have you. Good to have you. I always wanted Greco, like their hollow bodies and bases. Yes, sir, I do too. And welcome to you. I had this made. Welcome. That's a fair price. Yeah, for a wholesale price. I'm like I said. I don't want to be part of the problem to try to jack these things. The guy who buys it from me, it's usually my bigger clients are middle sized retailers here in Amsterdam. They buy it from me and they mark it up. That's on them. Uh, I'll be frank with you. I have seen these guitars go as high as 1,800 euros. 1,800 euros. So I certainly am not being greedy on my end for my wholesale price. If I were to sell it to a private individual, it'd be a little bit more than that, but still not unreasonable. Scott, Mike, I could listen to waffle on guitars all day, only if any of my ex-girlfriends felt the same way. Only if. Um, you know, and in the case of this guitar, the shop didn't do their homework. They took one look at this, and for some reason they thought it was a EG500. Which, yeah, there was an EG500. I said there wasn't an EG500 in 1977. To my memory, I double checked my copies of the catalogs, and yes, actually, there was. I was incorrect. That's another mistake that I made in that video. Not well, a half mistake, because they came out in the later half again, much like this one. So I'm sorry, in the earlier, unlike reverse that, really actually reverse that. Getting late. The EG500 was in the catalog, so that means that it was a precursor to even this. And then that's great for me because I can go and look at that EG500 and it looks nothing like this. So that helps identify as well. But the guys at the shop, they weren't looking closely. They didn't look close enough. They didn't look at the pickups and they didn't look at the back. And they assumed it was an EG500 and they sold it as such. And as I pointed out in that video, they sold it to me for half its value, or more than half its value. So again, because I saw a few clues that got the file going in my mind when I saw the listing, I immediately jumped on it. And so there's that. You know, these are guys. This is a good chance. Usually when I get these in, I have to get them going. But actually, I got a little bit of time with these. Actually, I want to do some little minor cosmetic things to the custom anyway, so they can stick around here for a minute. But to have this kind of history in this room, to have three Greco guitars from the 1970s, so that you can see with your own eyes here, no AI, you can see the construction quality of them. You can understand the history of them. You get a lot of information. So if you're digging this, you're really here tonight at the right time. You caught me at a good time. I would like to hear your guys' thoughts. My question to you is, I like this neck. I like these SEs. As you know, I did a 450 and I sold it to the same guy that I'm actually offering the Aria Pro 2 to. I just think that for me, the Aria Pro 2, and in discussing its pros and cons, yes, I do have a history with that guitar, but as you guys know, I regretted that letting that 450 go that I restored. I got this for the same price as the Aria Pro 2, so I can keep either one. Which one would you keep? Which one would you keep is my question. The 75 SE, which okay, it's a more valuable guitar, but I didn't pay him. I didn't pay very much for it, so I'm not looking at the value aspect. I'm just looking at the playability, all the things about it, and just like to hear what you guys think. I'm not dead set. I can still say I got a little bit more life in me, so maybe another telly will come along. But I'd like to hear your thoughts. Alan, welcome. Hi, I have a Grin made in Japan, 1970s, very similar to the Greco, but cannot find any info on it. Anyone can give me some info? It has a triple black and white binding and gold hardware. Yeah, the Grin. A lot of the small. I don't know that one in particular. I've seen maybe it does hit something in my home file, but just to state in general, so that you know, in Japan in the 1970s, there were multiple gakis. Gakis like Fuji Gaki, Fuji Gengaki, Chugaki, Chuogengaki, Matsumoku Gaki. These small shops that were producing OEM guitars like the Grin, like the Aria Pro 2 that I was just talking about, that were done in small batches, that were just for an individual store like Ishibashi or something like that. That's why it's hard to find information on them, because a lot of times they didn't catalog them. My Aria Pro 2, for example, you will not find it in a catalog, though it's a made in Japan in 96. It's not a 70s, but it's the same reasons, because it was an OEM that a store ordered, and So that's the first hurdle that you'll have to jump. But I'll keep it in mind, Alan. Join into the live chat here on Sunday, and I might have an answer for you. I will take a look. Scott says, I wouldn't sell that Strat. The body wood is too great. Again, I'm just going to point out, because I just, to be honest and not bullshit you guys, I paid the same price for this as I paid for that RE Pro 2. But the wood grain on this thing is insane. And they match. Look at that back. That's one piece, by the way. That's why it's matched like that. And they cut it very nicely. That's, again, like I said, you can see the seam there where it's two pieces, the bottom half. And the top half, the grain on that's one piece of that grain as well. And you're not going to find wood grain on fender Strats, even out of the custom shop. They don't have wood like this anymore. This wood, probably when this was made in 77, was already a decade old. I've pointed that out before. In the case of some of those fenders, in the case of some of those, certainly in some of those Gibsons, that wood was over 100 years old in the case of some of their acoustics back in the day. Benny says, another vote for keeping it. Keep that one. Great looking wood on the body. Have you ever seen people play Fender for a neck like that? It's got, and here's the other thing is, like I said, every guitar has a story, and I can start to read these guitars when I got in, and this was somebody's player guitar that they kept for life. I think the owner of that guitar passed away. I really do, because look at that. Look at how much he played. That's some serious gigging. You don't get, but kept the rest of the body nice. He played, but he kept the rest of the body nice. There's no cigarette burns or anything like that in this thing. And so therefore, that means something to me as well, because, I'd like to be a part of that. Even it's got a refret on it. You can see there the slots where it was played so much that he even refretted it in that time. So this, I always like to get a guitar that has a story. That has a story. It's got something to it. It's got a vibe to it too. It's got a vibe to it. It's got a mojo to it. So that's it. If it plays well, there's nothing wrong. The neck is straight. Frets they had a refret. They're still about 80%, so that's still good. I haven't plugged it in, but like I said, I bought it from a shop that does all that checking. They said it sounds great. 3-way switch on it. You know how much I hate 5-way switches. I like the 3-way switch. So it's got the specs I like, and it's looking like that I'm going to keep this one. From what you guys are saying, you're kind of flamed at the top center part. Yeah, nice cut of wood for sure. Scott says flamed at the center part. Yeah, I'll show you that center seam so you can see that again. Look at that. You're not going to get this. Not only you're not going to get this neck, you're not going to get, like I said, flames like that, on any fenders these days, because they don't make them like this. That's what the old saying, they don't make them like this anymore. And we're going to have a discussion. This is going to lead to a discussion we're going to have on Sunday about does a refret value or devalue a guitar. There's something I also want to throw out there as well. I didn't know that this had a refret until I got it in. Does that devalue the guitar or does it value? So I want to talk about that on Sunday. To me, just as a spoiler, and just in this case, it doesn't matter whether it does or not. Because it shows a certain dedication and love from whoever the owner of this guitar was. But it's a one-owner guitar. I know the one-owner guitars. This guitar has had one owner in its life. And that guy, or prop guy, Japanese guy, played the shit out of this live. not just live, but also sitting around. So there is that. Very nice looking guitar. It's jumping off the screen. Yeah. Someone must have loved that one. That's what I'm feeling, Benny. I'm feeling that someone must have loved this one. So why don't I try to hold on to it and give it some love too, you know? Um, the Aria Pro 2 is a great telly. Like I said, it's better than a Squire Custom vibe is where I put it at. Better than a custom vibe. But it's not a 75. It's you know, it's just not this either. And this was a lucky find. Again, just a lucky find. I need to find more of these and not keep them and actually restore them and sell them. But I just, this one is speaking to me. I just want to know what you guys thought. You need to go Ernie Ball for, you need to go to Ernie Ball for a cut like that. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I know what you mean. I know what you mean. So those are my thoughts, guys. I'm actually considering keeping it and selling the Aria Pro 2 in a hard case. And I got a lovely hard case for it. It, you know, is still a good guitar I can sell at a good price. It'll go. But this one, you know, of course, that puts me back in the Strat land again. So now I have two Strats, an HH and a single, which I guess is okay. That HH covers a lot of territory. Let me tell you, I love that one. But I could see how, you know, weight wise, is it a boat? Yeah, all of these 70s Greco Strats and are boats. Is it a mega boat? No, it is about 9.5 pounds. That's a being unfair. It's about another 9 pounds. Let me see. I thought this was 9 pounds. Yeah, no, I thought this one was 9 pounds. No, this is not. This is maybe 8.5 pounds. You really want to strat at 7.5 tops, but 8.5 is okay. But still, you know, weight wise, I can see myself sitting on the couch and just, you know, riding and noodling with this thing. Um, and so, yeah, just a thought, guys. Scott says, I bought a banjo once because I loved the look of it, but had to sell it off because it was cursed by a witch. You know, I believe that. I believe that story. Everybody gets me think he's kidding, but you know, I believe those stories because objects can take on. You know, ectoplasm is actually a scientific. It's not just from Ghostbusters. It's an actual real word that sometimes these that there's some things that can attach itself to an instrument, and that can be good or bad. So I throw that out there. And that's a good spooky start to talking to segue into tonight's little reading of our book, Weird Scenes Inside the Can. So we're going to get away from talking about guitars. Thank you, Anna. Yeah, it does look cool. Did you see this one? If you want to see cool, Anna, this was the cool one tonight. This was this is the if you're looking for the best Japanese Les Pauls that you can find, this EG900 from 1977. Clean. Super clean. Yeah, yeah, I can polish that out. Just a little bit of there, but that actually that's polished out easily. Just clean. Clean guitar, clean 70s stuff. Alan says, love the Strat, it's a keeper. Thank you, Alan. I might just have to do that. Oh my God, you're the guy who's sitting on Johnny Be Good. That's a good one. I like that. I like that one. Now, are you talking about? Never mind. Now, we were talking about. Um, Thanks, man. Welcome to the chat, by the way, too. Um, all right, guys. So we're going to switch gears here. So we're going to get away from vintage guitars, and we're going to get into the vintage recording stories. Yeah, finished recording stories. We're going to get back into reading a small excerpt tonight. I'm reading a little bit at a time, chapter by chapter of this book by Dave McGowan, Weird Scenes from the Can. We're going to talk about Laurel Canyon and the music scene in the 1960s that sprang out of that. And I am going to demonstrate to you guys that it is a very, 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 very spooky place out there in the world in ways that I don't think some of you guys really understand. That's probably a good thing. But a little bit of light on a subject usually keeps you safe. So let's chat a little bit. Hey, welcome from Russia. Good to see you here, by the way, man. You are welcome, brother. Welcome to you in Russia. All right. Now, we were talking about how the hippie movement got kind of taken over by the counterculture, the anti-war movement, and how this was programmed. The hippie movement, now that is not to say, by the way, that the hippie movement was not a controlled movement. The hippie movement was a very controlled movement. You had guys like Huxley and a few others who were passing out LSD. High grade, high quality, very no impurities in it, LSD up there in Berkeley and San Francisco. Turns out that it was actually forces within the United States government that were using their laboratories in order to produce this, to distribute it, because they wanted to see what would be the effects of, well, one of the reasons. There's usually multiple reasons when they do things, but in this case, one of the reasons was they wanted to see the effects of it on large groups of people in the open, in the wild. But when that ceased to be amusing to them, they said, let's subvert these hippies and bunch them in through television shows, through radio discussions, through the media, subvert them and turn them into this new thing that we're formulating out here in Laurel Canyon called the anti-war movement, which is being sung about by our direct son, our actual sons and daughters. Managed by known gangsters. and and it doesn't get any better from there. It doesn't get any better than there. I saw you on Feet Finder. What the hell is Feet Finder? Dude, you know, some of y'all get up on here thinking that I'm American because I sound like one, but I haven't been in the States for decades. And some of these OnlyFans things that I hear about in Feet Finder, you guys are, I've said it before, I'll say it again, you guys are lost. You guys are in big trouble. If you're paying money to find feet, you got problems that you should not broadcast on a live stream on YouTube. Demon Eye says, then Charles Manson interesting. Yeah, we're going to get to old Charlie. Charlie was signed to a label and was actually doing demos with not David Cosby, with Stephen Stills. We'll get to that. So that's how that happened. You know, the hippie movement, which was started as a social experiment, was then engulfed by and put into a new movement called the anti-war movement when it ceased to have its usefulness. As Barry Miles has written in his coffee table book, Hippie, there were some hippies involved in anti-war protests, particularly after the priest riot in Chicago. Note the date, in 1968, not 65, as some would make you believe, when so many people got injured. But on the whole, the movement activists looked on hippies with disdain. So the counterculture guys looked at the hippies with disdain. Why is that? Why would the anti-war guys look at the hippies with disdain? I thought they were all one happy, dirty family. They weren't. Because as I've demonstrated, as Dave McGowan has demonstrated and laid out, the anti-war group were the sons and daughters of military industrial people. They were complex people, families that had been in it for generations in some cases. And they always would have looked at the hippies with disdain anyway. But they had to have them, put into their little movement in order to give it some momentum. So there's that. And the hippies really weren't into anti-war protest until 68. 69 Woodstock, those were true hippies mixed in with anti-war. So you can see the difference. Some of the left even theorized that hippies were the end result of a plot by the CIA to neutralize the anti-war movement with LSD, turning potential protesters into self-absorbed navel gazers. No. See how they'll pervert and also, subvert the truth, and like a mirror, hold it up in a mirror, as above, so below, they'll reverse it on them. That wasn't the case. It was completely the other way around. Turning potential protesters into self-absorbed navel gazers. An exasperated Abby Hoffman once described the scene as he remembered. And by the way, look into Abby Hoffman. Okay? Not a clean person. Ties up and down himself to certain groups in the government. There were all these activists, Berkeley radicals, White Panthers. All White Panthers, is there such a thing? Okay. All trying to stop the war and change things for the better. Then we got flooded with all these flower children who were into drugs and sex. Where the hell did these hippies come from? As it turns out, they came from, initially at least, from a rather private, isolated, largely self-contained neighborhood in Los Angeles known as Laurel Canyon. all roads lead during this time period lead to Laurel Canyon. I wonder why that is. Let's catch up here in the chat. MK Ultra, we'll talk about that too. There's a lot of that. It's like the Black Lives Matters and Antifa or something. No, it's not like that. That crap was, Black Lives Matters crap and Antifa crap is the same crap with different labels on it. Right? It's called MK Ultra. Clearly, you're not an educated individual on the subject. Okay, Cal 420. I think you've been hitting 420 a little bit too much, if that's what you think. But we will get into MK Ultra, and it's not that. It's not Bluebird. There's a lot of things in this. It's not just one thing, and that's the mistake that a lot of people make. The unclean all smell like patchouli oil. Yeah, man, hippies. Which by the way, I like that smell. I grew up in Southern California in the 70s, so I really know what that smell is, and I like it. But that's just me. Shout out to you. So, Laurel Canyon, all these movements, they got funneled into this. They got commingled, and they were antithetical to each other in a lot of ways. Woody's BLM, it's only boy and male couple. I don't know what that means. Anyway, guys, so we'll stop there tonight. I wanted to read that part, that last little bit of the book before we start getting into a description of Laurel Canyon, if you've never been there, for the next reading on Sunday. Just wanted to point out, that not everything is as it seems, kids, and that even now, today, the same tricks are being used. And if you have a little light to illuminate things, the truth can be shown that it cannot fool you. If you say, hey, wait a minute, it's like this guitar. I said, Mahumfau, hey, wait a minute. 500s don't have cream pickups on them, Hey, wait a minute. this Black Lives Matters Antifa thing, this sounds smacks very similar of some things that occurred back in the 60s and 70s, you know. So therefore, it is really incumbent on all of us to understand this so that they can't fool you. Fool me once, fool me twice. Kind of. You can't fool you if you know what's going on. If you have a little bit of knowledge, they can't get you, and so that's why I go through this. Can someone kind of fill me in? I'm interested in what's being talked about, but I'm lost here. Ty, Ty. We started out by talking about some really cool vintage guitars. You missed that, but hit the rewind and check that out. And at the end of every live stream for this summer, going through this summer till around September, I'm going to read chapters from a book called Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon. And I am going to discuss the realities of the music business to you guys. I want you to understand it. And I want you to understand it in conjunction with a lot of other things as well, so that, again, you can't be deceived. BLM TV reminder of the weather underground. Yeah, Demon Eyes. Again, if you know that, if you see that, if there's something back in your home file that says, that looks really similar, I've seen this before. That's right. Yes, sir, you can. And God bless you for doing it. Thank you so much if you do. Leave a comment down and below. Sir, you have the swagger of a newscast broadcaster and the calm demeanor of a spine surgeon. Who are you? Thank you, DC. Why can't anybody be as eloquent as DC here when it comes to paying, a compliment? That is the best compliment I've gotten in a long time. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's a good one. I should get that tattooed on my arm. That's a good one. I am a producer, musician, a raconteur, teller of tales. I am a lot of things, and I am here every Sunday night at 11 p.m. Central European Time and Wednesday night, 11 p.m. Central European Time as well. Talking about a lot of different things when it comes to music, instruments, and stories. And I welcome you guys all to hit the subscribe button and join in to this great group of folks that you guys can see that I have here. I've got the greatest moderator in the world. I really think he's going to get tendonitis from all hitting that button every night, him and Maddie. But I want to thank them first so much, Scott and Maddie. I want to thank all the rest of you guys for always being here. Sometimes late, sometimes early, but you're always here. And that's why I'm here, because, I don't make any money off of this. To tell you the truth, I don't. You guys know that. You can do the math. But that's not what I'm doing this for. I'm doing it for the pleasure of talking about this stuff and being and communicating and spending time with you guys twice a week. It means a lot to me. So thank you guys so much. Just want to say that. All right. I think that's it for tonight. I'm going to go to bed, and I'm going to listen to Star Wars tonight because I've been talking and thinking guitars literally all day today. So I'm going to go to a galaxy far, far away tonight. And maybe I'm going to listen to the Thrawn audio novel tonight. Yeah, I'm going to listen to Thrawn tonight. That always puts me to sleep. If I don't listen to Star Wars audiobooks, I tend to listen to historical audiobooks or religious theology audiobooks. And that's what helps me go to sleep at night. I don't want to think about guitars. And so there's that. So I'm going to do that. Jared Leto apparently now owns the old compound up on top of Lower. Of course he does. Of course he does. We're going to talk about how Hollywood ties into this as well. Thank you, guys. I help because the channel is great. Scott, God bless you, man. I'm serious. You and Maddie, you guys taking on that responsibility means a lot, and it helps. As you see tonight, it gets crazy. And it'd just be insanity without you. I can't do without you. I can't do it without you guys. All right, guys, time for me to go to sleep. Benny, thank you. You guys take care. I will see you on the next one, guys. Take care. Bye bye.